Welcome to Daily Dreamer, the podcast that provides practical tips and insights to help you reach your biggest dreams. Tune in for daily doses of motivation, inspiration, and actionable advice to turn your aspirations into reality. Whether you're looking to find clarity, boost your confidence, or stay on track with your goals, Daily Dreamer is here to guide you every step of the way.
Welcome to another deep dive, you guys. This time it's going to be all about you and how you come across to other people. So we are going to be diving deep into the world of body language and charisma and how to make sure you're making the impression that you want to be making. We're going to be pulling from a fascinating interview with Vanessa van Edwards, a behavioral investigator. It's from the Diary of a CEO YouTube channel. And think about this for a second, okay? 82% of a first impression is based on how warm and competent you seem. That's huge. I mean, before you even open your mouth, people are already sizing you up.
Yeah, and it's fascinating how much we communicate without even saying a word.
Yeah.
You know, people tend to think about body language as just like, you know, how you're standing or what you're doing with your hands.
Yeah.
But Van Edwards points out it's so much more than that. It's your vocal tone. It's the specific words you choose. It's even the way you dress. It all sends a message.
She even calls these things our ornaments. It's like we're all decked out in these nonverbal signals, and most of the time we don't even realize what we're projecting.
Exactly. And that's where the idea of balancing warmth and competence comes in. Van Edwards says you need both to really nail that first impression. Like if your competence leaves no warmth, you might seem cold or intimidating, but too much warmth. And people might not take you seriously.
Yeah. Have you ever met someone who was brilliant, but just kind of hard to approach? Or someone who was super friendly, but you just couldn't see them as a leader? It's like those two ingredients have to be in just the right proportion or the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah, it's a delicate dance. And it's something we often do unconsciously.
Yeah.
But once you become aware of these dynamics, you can start to adjust your own cues to project the impression that you want.
This makes me think about all those times I've been told I have a resting, bothered face. You know, Van Edwards uses that term to describe how some people just naturally look kind of serious, even when they're feeling totally neutral.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Even our resting faces are sending signals. And it just highlights the fact that we're always communicating, even when we think we're not.
So if you're constantly getting feedback that you seem unapproachable or intimidating, it might be time to check your resting face in the mirror.
Yeah. Self-awareness is key. It's about paying attention to your default expressions and how they might be interpreted by others.
Okay, let's talk about a real-world example of how these cues play out. Remember Jamie Siminoff, the founder of Ring, pitching his idea on Shark Tank?
Oh, yes. A classic example of how even a billion-dollar idea can be overshadowed by the way it's presented.
It's crazy, right? He had this amazing product, a video doorbell that we all use now, but initially none of the sharks wanted to invest.
Yeah, and you can see why. If you look back at his body language and tone, he was clearly brilliant. But he wasn't projecting that warmth and competence needed to win the sharks over.
It's like he was missing that secret ingredient that makes people not only believe in your idea, but believe in you as a person.
Totally. And Siminoff eventually went back on Shark Tank and got a deal. But that initial rejection really highlights the importance of mastering these cues.
It's not enough to have a great idea. You have to be able to communicate it in a way that makes people not just understand it, but feel it.
It's about connecting on both an intellectual and an emotional level.
All right, so this next point is so wild. I was reading through the research, and apparently even a single word can dramatically change people's behavior.
Oh, yeah. Priming is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
There's this study that perfectly illustrates this. They had people play the same game, but called it either the community game or the Wall Street game.
Just changing the name completely shifted how people approach the game, right?
Right. Those playing the community game were way more collaborative, focused on the good of the group. But when it was called the Wall Street game, everyone got competitive and selfish.
It's like those single words tapped into completely different mindsets, even though the task was exactly the same.
It's crazy, right? Think about how this applies to how you frame things in your own life. It's not just about the information itself. It's about the words you use to present it.
The way you word an email, the name of a meeting, even a simple subject line, it can all prime people to react in a specific way.
Like you're setting the stage for the interaction before it even begins.
This makes me think about Van Edwards' cue cycle, which is the idea that our cues can create a self-fulfilling prophecy. Have you ever noticed that when you're feeling insecure or anxious? It's like you give off these cues that make other people treat you that way?
Oh, totally. It's like a negative spiral.
Mm.
You send out these cues, maybe avoid eye contact or hunch your shoulders, and then people react to those cues with less warmth or less respect,
Yeah.
which makes you feel even worse and just reinforces the cycle.
But the amazing thing is that it works the other way around, too. If you project confidence and warmth, people tend to mirror those cues right back at you, and it just creates this positive feedback loop.
It's like you're influencing the energy of the entire interaction.
Okay, ready for a bit of a creepy factor. There's this study that found being around high performers actually boosts your own performance by 15%. But being near low performers has the opposite effect. You get a 30% decrease.
It's a bit unnerving, isn't it?
Ah.
We're constantly picking up cues from those around us, both consciously and subconsciously. And those cues can have a real impact on our own behavior and performance.
It's like we're all sponges, absorbing the energy of the people we're with.
And it gets even weirder. There's research showing that people can literally smell fear sweat, and it triggers their own fear response.
So if you're surrounded by negativity or low performance, it's literally affecting your brain chemistry.
Yeah, it highlights the importance of choosing your environment wisely. Surround yourself with people who uplift and inspire you.
Okay, let's talk about hand gestures. I used to think they were just something to do with your hands while you talked, but Van Edwards says they're crucial for making a point and coming across as confident.
Yeah, hand gestures are about more than just keeping your hands busy. They help us emphasize our points and make our ideas clearer, and they make us more engaging and memorable.
And this isn't just a theory, there's research to back it up. A study of TED Talks found that the most popular speakers used almost twice as many hand gestures as the less popular ones.
The takeaway: don't be afraid to use your hands when you're speaking.
But it's not about random flailing, it's about using your gestures strategically to paint a picture with your words and your body.
It's about bringing your ideas to life.
Speaking of bringing things to life, try saying 5 while holding up 3 fingers.
It's hard, isn't it? Our brains want to connect our words and our actions.
It also shows why mismatched gestures can be a red flag. If someone's words and body language don't align, it might mean they're not being totally truthful.
It's like our subconscious is trying to tell us something.
Okay, this next one is a total game changer for me. The power of downward inflection. I had no idea how much the way we end our sentences can affect how authoritative we sound.
Yeah, upward inflection, like when you end a sentence as if you're asking a question, can actually make you sound less confident, especially when you're stating something important like your name or a key point.
It's like saying, "My name is Steve," instead of "My name is Steve." Huge difference. It makes you sound unsure of yourself.
Think about someone like Barack Obama. He's a master of using downward inflection to convey conviction and power. It makes him sound confident and in control.
Yeah. I'm realizing how often I end my sentences on an upswing, almost like I'm asking for permission to be heard. It's totally undermining my authority.
It's something most of us do unconsciously. But once you're aware of it, you can adjust your tone and project more confidence.
Okay, this next part is all about boosting your likability. Van Edwards gives 3 magic phrases that can instantly make you more likable. And it all comes down to fighting the assumption that people know what you're thinking.
Yeah, we often make the mistake of thinking our thoughts and feelings are transparent. But in reality, people aren't mind readers.
So her first magic phrase is, "I was just thinking of you." Simple but powerful, right?
Totally. It shows the other person that they're on your mind, that you value them. And it's easy to do authentically. You see something that reminds you of someone, send a text. Were you thinking of them for a specific reason? Tell them.
Her second phrase is, "You're always so."
And you fill in the blank with a positive quality. You're always so thoughtful. You're always so funny. It reinforces their strengths and makes them feel appreciated.
And the last one is, "Last time we talked, you mentioned."
It shows you're really listening and remembering what they say, which is incredibly flattering.
I love these. They're so simple, but so effective. I'm challenging myself to try these for the next month and see what happens. What about you?
I think it's a brilliant challenge. Small effort, big potential rewards.
Okay, this next study is kind of strange, but fascinating. It turns out that when they did a demo of a blender, the one that accidentally spilled ingredients actually sold better.
That's the other shoe effect in action. It seems counterintuitive, but it tells us that imperfection can actually be an advantage.
It's like when someone trips and laughs it off, it makes them seem more human, more relatable.
Yeah, we're naturally drawn to people who seem authentic. And imperfections are a part of that. They make us feel like we're not alone in our own flaws and mistakes.
So maybe striving for this picture-perfect image isn't always the best strategy. Maybe letting your guard down a little can actually make you more likable.
It's about being comfortable in your own skin, flaws and all.
This brings us to mirroring and intimate zones. These are two concepts that can totally change the vibe of an interaction, especially when it's one-on-one.
Mirroring is fascinating. It's that subconscious thing we do where we mimic the other person's body language. It's like our brains are wired for connection. And we create a sense of harmony by reflecting the other person's posture, gestures, even their tone of voice.
We actually learned this firsthand with our podcast setup.
Yeah, we noticed that when our guests sat in chairs with arms, they tended to lean in, which restricted their movement and made them less expressive. So we switched to armless chairs and brought our guests closer to the table, which encouraged more open body language.
It was a small change, but it made a huge difference in the energy of our conversations.
And speaking of subtle cues, have you ever noticed that FaceTime calls can feel more intense than Zoom calls? It's because the camera angle on FaceTime forces you into a closer, more intimate zone, even though you're not physically in the same room.
It's like being forced into someone's personal bubble. It can feel a bit intrusive, especially if you're not super close to the person.
It really shows how physical distance, even virtually, can affect our sense of connection and comfort.
Now let's talk about a tactic that can totally backfire if you're not careful. Peacocking.
This comes from the pickup artist world, and it's about using exaggerated displays of confidence, often through body language, to try and attract attention.
And while some level of confidence is obviously attractive, leaning into peacocking can come off as arrogant or even manipulative.
It's like trying too hard. A little bit of confidence goes a long way, but overdo it and it can have the opposite effect.
There's this fine line between genuine confidence and just trying to show off.
Yeah, and another thing to consider is that constantly leaning in towards someone can actually signal submissiveness, which isn't what you want if you're trying to project confidence.
It's about finding that balance. A slight lean-in can show interest and engagement, but too much leaning can make you seem needy or insecure.
Subtlety is key.
Okay, this next one is all about those little nuances that make a big difference. The nod. Apparently there's a difference between the upward nod and the downward.
Have you noticed this? The upward nod is usually how we acknowledge people we know, while the downward nod is more for strangers.
Well, I never really thought about it before, but now that you mention it, I can totally see it. It's like those tiny variations in a gesture can reveal something about our social dynamics.
It's fascinating how much information we're conveying without even realizing it.
So let's talk about a common challenge. Helping a friend who's amazing but just can't seem to find a romantic partner. Van Edwards talks about a friend with what she calls shriveled body language. And it's like their insecurities are literally holding them back.
Yeah, when we're feeling insecure or anxious, it often shows up in our body language. Hunched shoulders, crossed arms, avoiding eye contact. These all send the message that we're closed off and unapproachable.
It's like our bodies are betraying our true feelings, even if we're trying to act confident.
So how do we help our friend break out of this pattern and project more confidence and openness? It's about finding activities that encourage them to literally expand their presence. Things like hiking, dancing, or playing a sport like pickleball.
Those activities naturally encourage more open and confident postures.
It's a way to reprogram their body language and build their confidence from the inside out.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about something we all wish we were better at. Spotting a liar.
We all want to believe we can spot a liar a mile away. But the research is pretty clear on this. Most of us are terrible at it. The average person can only detect a lie with 54% accuracy, which is barely better than chance.
So what's the alternative? Do we just have to accept that we're going to be fooled sometimes?
Well, we can definitely stop trying to be human lie detectors. Van Edwards suggests focusing on red flags and asking good follow-up questions if something seems off.
Okay, what kind of red flags are we talking about?
Things like incongruent nods, a sudden drop in volume when they're talking about a specific topic, or even those micro-expressions of disgust that flash across their face for a split second.
It's like their true feelings are leaking out, even if they're trying to hide them.
So if you notice any of these red flags, it's not about accusing them of lying. It's about digging a little deeper and trying to understand what's really going on. Ask clarifying questions and observe their responses.
It's more about seeking clarity than playing gotcha.
Exactly. And remember, these red flags don't always mean someone is lying. They might be nervous or uncomfortable for a different reason. The key is to approach the situation with curiosity and an open mind.
It's about building trust and rapport, which is essential for any kind of healthy relationship.
And creating a space where they feel safe, to be honest.
This whole conversation about cues and first impressions makes me think about how we present ourselves, like, in general. Like our personal brand, especially online. Do you think trying to be perfect can actually backfire?
Absolutely. Van Edwards talks about something called deficiency promotion. It's when people try to build a brand around their flaws or vulnerabilities, often exaggerating them for attention or sympathy.
Oh, yeah. Like, look at me. I'm a total mess, but I'm still killing it.
Exactly. And while it's great to be authentic, there's a difference between being vulnerable and oversharing or trying to make your flaws your whole identity.
So how do we find that sweet spot where we're being real, but also putting our best foot forward?
It's a tricky balance. But it's about being confident in who you are, flaws and all, without needing to constantly draw attention to them.
This makes me think about a story Van Edwards shares about misreading a social situation. She was having dinner with her husband and thought everyone was angry with her.
Oh, no.
And it turns out she was just misinterpreting neutral facial expressions as negative.
It's a good reminder that we all have our own biases and filters
Yeah.
when it comes to reading people.
Yeah, and we project our own stuff onto others, too. If we're feeling insecure, we might assume everyone else is judging us.
We see the world through our own lens.
Right.
And it's so easy to jump to conclusions based on our own baggage.
Which is why it's so important to approach social situations with an open mind and give people the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly. Assume good intent until you have a reason to think otherwise.
So Van Edwards dives deep into specific cues we can use to project competence and warmth. Let's start with the competence cues. These are especially helpful if you feel like you're often interrupted or overlooked, like people don't quite take you seriously.
All right, so the first one's called the steeple. It's when you bring your fingertips together in a triangular shape, almost like a church steeple.
I've seen people do this. It definitely projects an air of authority.
It's a subtle power move, but you don't want to overdo it. Too much steepling can make you seem arrogant or condescending.
Like anything else with body language, it's all about finding the right balance.
The next one is interesting. It's about maximizing the distance between your earlobes and your shoulders.
Huh. What does that even mean?
Think about it. When we're stressed or anxious, our shoulders tend to creep up toward our ears. It's like our bodies are trying to shrink and disappear.
So by consciously pulling our shoulders down and back, we're sending a signal of relaxation and confidence.
Exactly. Try it right now. Sit up straight, pull your shoulders back, and notice how it makes you feel.
Wow. I actually feel a little more alert and in control just by changing my posture.
It's amazing how these subtle adjustments can affect our state of mind.
Okay, number 3, eye contact. I feel like this one is pretty obvious, but I'm guessing there's more to it than just making eye contact right.
There is. Van Edwards says the timing of your eye contact is crucial. Making eye contact at the end of your sentences, especially when the other person is saying something important, can make you seem much more competent.
It's like you're really emphasizing your points
Yeah,
and showing that you're paying attention.
exactly.
Yeah.
It conveys engagement and respect. But again, don't overdo it. Too much eye contact can feel aggressive or creepy. It's all about finding that sweet spot.
Okay, this next one is new to me. The lower lid flex. What in the world is that?
It's a subtle tightening of the muscles below your eyes. We do it naturally when we're focusing or concentrating, like trying to read something in dim light.
I can totally feel myself doing it right now.
And if you do it intentionally while someone's talking,
Yeah.
it signals that you're laser focused on them.
Like a nonverbal way of saying, I'm hanging on your every word.
It's also interesting to note that a lot of male models and actors use this in photo shoots. It creates a smoldering, intense look.
So it's a power move that can also be a bit seductive. I like it.
And the fifth competence cue is one we've touched on already: downward inflection.
Right. Ending your sentences on an upswing can make you sound uncertain, like you're seeking approval.
Downward inflection, especially when you're stating key information, makes you sound more confident and authoritative. It's like you're dropping the mic after making your point.
Makes you wonder how many times I've undermined my own authority without even realizing it.
It's a common mistake, but once you're aware of it, it's easy to adjust.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about the 5 warmth cues. These are great for those of us who might come across as a little intense or intimidating and want to dial up the approachability.
So the first one is the triple nod. It's exactly what it sounds like. A slow, deliberate nod of the head 3 times in a row.
I'm nodding right now just thinking about it.
Van Edwards says this simple gesture can encourage people to talk for 67% longer.
Wow, so it's like a nonverbal invitation to keep sharing.
Exactly. It shows you're listening, engaged, and you genuinely want to hear more.
But there are some nuances to it, right? I imagine a fast triple nod could come off as impatient.
Absolutely. It needs to be slow and deliberate. Otherwise, it's like you're rushing them along.
Okay, warmth cue number 2 is the head tilt.
Yes. The head tilt. This one's interesting because research shows it can make you seem more likable, even when you're delivering bad news.
It's like you're signaling that you're on their side, that you understand where they're coming from.
It adds a touch of vulnerability and empathy, which can go a long way in building rapport.
Okay, cue number 3 is a classic.
An authentic smile.
I mean, everyone knows smiling is good, but I bet there's a difference between a genuine smile and a fake one.
You're right. A real smile reaches your eyes, creating those little crinkles we call crow's feet. A fake smile only uses the muscles around your mouth and can seem insincere or even creepy.
I've definitely encountered those forced smiles that don't reach the eyes. It's like they're trying too hard.
Yeah, if you find smiling doesn't come naturally, don't force it. Focus on other warmth cues that feel more genuine to you.
Number 4 on the list is the lean.
Leaning in shows interest and engagement. It subtly closes the distance between you and the other person.
But I'm guessing too much leaning can backfire, right?
You're catching on. Overdoing it can seem needy or aggressive.
That's all about being aware of your body
Yeah.
and using these cues intentionally.
Exactly. A little goes a long way.
And the final warmth cue is the nonverbal bridge.
This is about using your body language to create a sense of connection. It might be a light touch on the arm, a slight lean in, or even just ensuring your body is facing the other person directly.
It's like you're sending a message of openness and accessibility.
Exactly. It's especially powerful in situations where you might be feeling nervous or awkward.
So this is an incredible toolkit of cues for navigating any social situation. I'm already thinking about how I can apply these in my own life.
It's about recognizing that we have more control over how we're perceived than we realize. We can literally choose the impression we want to make.
This has been so insightful. There's so much more to body language than we think. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on a few more interesting points from Van Edwards' interview. She talked about how we can actually use body language to kind of like hack our own brains, especially when it comes to feeling more confident.
Yeah, it's called power posing.
Yeah.
The idea is if you adopt a posture that's associated with confidence and power, even if you don't actually feel that way on the inside, your brain will start to catch up.
So it's like faking it till you make it, but with your body language.
In a way, yes, but it's not about being inauthentic. It's about giving your brain a little nudge in the right direction.
I like that. So what are some examples of power poses?
Think Wonder Woman. Standing with your legs apart, hands on your hips, chin lifted, or imagine like a CEO sitting back in their chair, arms spread wide, taking up space.
I'm trying the Wonder Woman pose right now, and I have to say, I already feel a little more badass.
Our bodies and minds are constantly influencing each other. So if you want to feel more confident, start by acting confident.
It's like tricking your brain into believing it. Speaking of tricking our brains, Van Edwards shared this kind of crazy anecdote about a time she was having dinner with her husband, and she was convinced that everyone was angry with her.
Oh, no.
But it turned out she was just misinterpreting neutral facial expressions as like negative ones.
It's a good reminder that we all have our own biases and filters when it comes to reading people.
Yeah, and we project our own stuff onto others too. Like if we're feeling insecure, we might just assume that everyone else is judging us.
We see the world through our own lens, and it's so easy to jump to conclusions based on our own baggage.
So it's like we really have to be careful about making assumptions based on how we think someone is feeling.
Definitely. It's always best to err on the side of giving people the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, so this whole idea of cues just makes me think about how much of what we're picking up on is actually nonverbal. Van Edwards mentioned that in a face-to-face interaction, only about 7% of our communication is through the actual words we say.
That's right. The majority of our communication is nonverbal. It's our body language, our tone of voice, our facial expressions.
It's like there's this whole secret language going on beneath the surface. No wonder there's so many misunderstandings.
Right. It highlights the importance of paying attention to those nonverbal cues. They can tell us so much more than words ever could.
Okay, I want to talk about a specific scenario that I think a lot of us can relate to. You know that friend who is amazing in every way, but just can't seem to find a romantic partner?
Ugh.
Van Edwards addresses this exact situation. She talks about a friend who has what she calls shriveled body language. And it's like their insecurities are literally holding them back in the dating world. It's like their body language is screaming, "Stay away," even if they're actually desperate to connect.
It's heartbreaking, really.
Yeah.
But the good news is We can help our friends break out of this pattern.
So how do we do that? How do we help them project more confidence and openness?
It's about encouraging them to engage in activities that literally expand their presence. Things like hiking, dancing, or playing a sport like pickleball. These can help them physically embody a more confident and open posture.
It's about getting them out of their heads and into their bodies.
Exactly. And as they start to feel more confident in their bodies, that confidence will start to radiate outward in their interactions.
It's like creating a positive feedback loop.
And who knows? Maybe they'll even meet someone special while they're at it.
All right. Last but not least, let's talk about something we all wish we were better at: spotting a liar.
It's a tempting superpower, isn't it? But unfortunately, research shows that most of us are terrible at it. The average person can only detect a lie with 54% accuracy, which is barely better than chance.
So should we just give up and accept that we're going to be fooled sometimes?
Well, we can definitely stop trying to be human lie detectors. Van Edwards suggests focusing on recognizing red flags and asking good follow-up questions when something seems off.
Okay, so what are some of those red flags to watch for?
Incongruent nods, for example, or a sudden drop in volume when someone is talking about a particular topic. Even micro-expressions, those fleeting flashes of emotion that we try to hide, those can give us clues.
Those micro-expressions are so fascinating. It's like our true feelings are betraying us, even for a split second.
Exactly. So if you notice any of these red flags, it's not about accusing the person of lying. It's about gently probing a little deeper, asking clarifying questions, and observing their responses.
It's more about seeking clarity than trying to catch someone in a lie.
Exactly. And remember, these red flags don't always mean someone is being dishonest. There could be other reasons for their behavior. They might be nervous, embarrassed, or just uncomfortable with the topic.
Yeah, the key is to approach the situation with curiosity and an open mind, rather than judgment.
It's about building trust and rapport, which is essential for any kind of healthy relationship.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into body language, what are some of the biggest takeaways? I think for me, it's realizing how much we communicate without even saying a word. We're constantly sending signals with our posture, our gestures, our tone of voice, and even our facial expressions.
And those signals have a huge impact on how we're perceived by others. They can make us seem more competent, more likable, or even more trustworthy.
And the good news is we have more control over those signals than we realize. We can literally choose to project the impression we want to make.
It's about being intentional with our body language and using it as a tool to create the connections we want.
So if you could leave our listener with one final thought, what would it be?
You can't always control other people's cues, but you can always control your own. So start paying attention to your body language and how it's affecting your interactions. You might be surprised by what you discover.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive into the often hidden world of body language. We hope you've enjoyed it and learned some valuable insights that you can apply in your own life. Until next time, keep diving deep.